In the beginning, the real beginning, God as we know him didn't exist. Reality was nothing but a dot called spirit, in an endless void of nothingness. The best word to describe this dot is unity or spirit. This dot, unity, was the starting point of all that is and will ever be. After immeasurable time of being alone in nothingness, gained consciousness, and with this consciousness came a need to perceive. However, spirit couldn't perceive itself while simply being itself. So, out of its infinite but unrefined power of all reality, spirit expanded its consciousness as far as it could go without moving, creating a sphere around itself, and this was the first circle in the flower of life. But spirit didn't know who or what it was.
O comes Amri, quas Amri.
To do this, spirit split into two, and for the first time, spirit could see itself from a point of view outside itself. By this, unity became duality, more than it ever was and yet still the same. This makes the Vesica Pisces. The Vesica Pisces is often used to represent the intersection of heaven and earth, or the union of Christ and the Church. It is also used in various esoteric and mystical teachings, including sacred geometry, where it is believed to represent the fundamental patterns and structures of the universe. The Vesica Pisces is not only visually striking, but it also contains mathematical and geometric significance. The ratio of the height of the Vesica Pisces to its width is the square root of 3, which is a significant number in many ancient traditions. The Vesica Pisces also contains the mathematical proportion of the golden ratio, which is often associated with beauty, harmony, and balance. In addition to its mathematical properties, the Vesica Pisces is also believed to represent the duality and balance of masculine and feminine energies. The pointed oval shape is often associated with the feminine, while the circles that form it represent the masculine. The intersection of the two circles is seen as a point of balance and harmony between these energies. However, as it was only split into two, it could only see itself from one point of view. The solution would have been to move around, revolving around itself to gain a full understanding of what it looked like from different perspectives. But unity was far from movement, as time and space were yet to manifest. Duality was everything, but everything wasn't yet in reality. Therefore, it split again, becoming the Trinity. This Trinity, the first Trinity, lasted for a long time, so much so that it began to feel like the beginning. However, it was incomplete. It lacked balance and wholeness. Unity, now Trinity, knew it wasn't seeing itself completely. There was more to see, and it couldn't abide the askew perspective it was forced to endure. So, it split once again, thereby increasing the total pieces of its viewing self to 3. With 3 pieces, viewing it from different perspectives, it was complete. Unity had become more. And as more, its viewing parts began to teleport. There was no time and space to move. However, all 3 perspectives of unity moved around it, switching positions and perspectives. Each piece that viewed the center wanted to see the center from every perspective possible. The movement of these 3 pieces revolving around the center created the first triangle, the first shape that ever existed. This triangle with the original spot in its middle became the eye of reality, the all-seeing eye, the beginning of true and complete consciousness. In its new consciousness, the all-seeing eyes couldn't speak, but it could think. Its first thoughts were simple and unique, the first thought that ever existed. Oz, pronounced Oz, I see, or I, pronounced Ahe, I am. This thought over eons expanded into a slightly more complicated thought. Oz, ta noblo di nanena, pronounced Oz, ta noblo di nyanena. Now I see that what I am, I am, and with it creating consciousness from unconsciousness. The triangle that formed the all-seeing eye was whole and complete. It provided a perspective that seemed comprehensive. However, the all-seeing eye could see that there were a lot of perspectives it was oblivious to. As a shape, it could see from all angles and points on a single plane, but there were countless planes and countless points. Therefore, still determined to gain more perspective and understanding, the first shape, the triangle of the all-seeing eye, transformed into the first structure called the tetrahedron. The creation of the tetrahedron led to the creation of the octahedron, and the further development of the octahedron transformed into the 6 spheres. These 6 spheres established the pattern for all things to follow. In the beginning was an infinitesimal dot. Then form was established by the triangle, structure was established by the tetrahedron. But it was the 6 spheres created by the further development of the tetrahedron that established the pattern of all life and all existence. The 6 spheres mark the beginning of life, a graduation from mere consciousness and observation to existence and experience. The points of intersection of these 6 spheres formed the points of the true star, which would later be known as the Star of David. But this was then, far before the existence of human life, or David himself. Then it was just 6 spheres, overlapping at different points, touching constantly. These 6 spheres began to interact in a unique and unprecedented way. At their different meeting points, something unfathomable began to happen. The spheres began to do more than mere touching. For lack of a better word, it could be said that they began to copulate. This process let out waves of vibrations, producing energy and matter to carry out a process akin to creation. From the vibrations and copulation of these spheres came the seed of life. Now this seed wasn't life. It was simply the potential of life. The seed of life grew into the egg of life and blossomed into the flower of life that brought forth the fruit of life. And so, the pattern for the creation, life and growth of every living being in the universe was established. The waves of energy produced during the process of creating the patterns of life formed a web of polarity that developed into time and space. As there were 6 spheres, there were 6 patterns of time and space, 6 dimensions, distinct and complete. Each sphere had its own 6th dimension, and just like unity, each sphere felt the need to observe itself. So each sphere split, creating a copy of itself while still maintaining its dimensional properties of time and space. These 12 spheres grew into full consciousness, bound by the laws of the 6th dimension created by their own copulation. Conscious of what they were and what they had become, the 12 spheres became the first living beings, fully alive, fully conscious. Unlike everything before them, these 12 spheres had wills. Before the 12 spheres, there had been consciousness, observation, perspectives, and experiences. But it was with the advent of the 12 spheres that will came to be. These 12 spheres with 12 distinct wills became known as the Elohim. The Elohims were archangels with unimaginable power and might. Alone they were beyond comprehension. Together, they were the Metatron. Joined as one and yet not the same, they formed a structure which was to be known as the Metatron Cube. The shape and form of the Metatron Cube, if seen from an insightful perspective, would reveal the Vitruvian man. For it was the image of the Metatron Cube that formed the basis of man's image and the image of all supreme creatures. The archangels, following the shape of their coalition, were pure light with the ability to morph into the image of man. Splitting and multiplying over and over again, reproducing at an exponential rate, the shape of the Metatron morphed into something more. The Tree of Life was created, a structure that contained all archangels with all their information, wills, and experience. These vast data is the basis for all creation. It is the DNA that all living beings possess, edited and different in various species, but all variants of the pure and original Metatron. These patterns and processes can be seen in everyday life. They can be seen in the creation of a galaxy and the cellular growth structure, splitting and multiplying thousands and thousands of times more. Moving away from just vibration, we eventually come to the first living being, which we call God or Source.
Different from the Elohims, for it was over and beyond, the Source marked a new era in reality. It didn't just have consciousness, observation, existence, experience, and will. It had intentions, emotions, strategies, ideas, and thoughts. It was the beginning of full and complete sentience. The source of all creation, God, was a lot like unity. It had that same drive to experience itself from multiple perspectives. But unlike unity, the source was far more advanced. It wasn't just a dot splitting into dots. It was a sentient being, and when it split, it created sentient spirits known as souls, each infused with a sliver of unity. In its quest to experience multiple perspectives, the Source split itself into an infinite amount of sentient consciousnesses. Like unity, all sentient consciousnesses revolved around him and looked upon him. All spirits lived within reality under the brightness of his unconditional love and light. They perceived him from different perspectives through different minds, gaining a unique and special understanding of what he was, is, and could be. However, with sentience comes free will, and with free will comes rebellion. While the love and light of the source was perfect and complete, some beings found it monotonous and boring. The source had wanted different experiences, and to do this, it had created diverse, unique, and independent beings which had original and divergent thoughts. Out of this wide divergence, it was only natural that some beings would be filled with darkness rather than light. These beings, which were dark rather than light, hate rather than love, found the light and love of the source absolutely unbearable. They were disparate and they had to flee. However, the light and love of the source was everywhere. The only option for them was to split reality and create a mirror reality where they could live. They succeeded in creating their mirror reality and fled in droves, leaving the light and love of the source. Only those who were true light and love, or were more light and love than hate and darkness, remained in the light realm of the source. As time went on, hate and love took multiple lesser and more potent forms, creating more dimensions, which we call the dimensions of love and consciousness. Eventually, a total of 9 dimensions were created, each providing a home to beings of varying degrees of light and darkness. The dimensions of love and consciousness serve as the stage for the ongoing interplay between light and dark, love and hate. The beings inhabiting these dimensions, created from the divine source, strive to learn, grow, and evolve through their experiences. The infinite number of sentient beings, each embodying a fragment of the source, journey through these dimensions, facing diverse challenges and experiences. They are influenced by the varying degrees of light and darkness within themselves and the dimensions they inhabit. Each being's unique composition of light and dark shapes their experiences, lessons, and personal growth. As these beings evolve, they may choose to embrace the light and love within them or succumb to the darkness and hate that also exists. This individual evolution contributes to the collective consciousness and overall balance between light and dark within the dimensions. The dimensions themselves may shift, expand, or merge as the balance of love and hate changes and as beings evolve. The ultimate goal for many beings is to attain greater understanding, self-awareness, and spiritual growth, eventually reuniting with the divine source. This process of reconnection is achieved by embracing the love and light within themselves and overcoming the darkness and hate that may have once held sway. Each being's journey through these dimensions is unique, as they encounter diverse experiences and challenges that test and refine their understanding of the nature of existence. As beings progress along their individual paths, they are continually faced with choices that can either lead them closer to the divine source or further into the realm of darkness and hate. The sum of these choices, made by all beings across the dimensions, shapes the overall balance of light and dark within the universe. The lessons learned from these experiences contribute to their individual growth and the evolution of the collective consciousness. Some beings may find themselves drawn to the path of service to others, seeking to uplift and support those around them. Others may be more self-focused, pursuing their own desires and ambitions. But in the end, it all contributes to the source. The divine source, from which all beings originate, remains an ever-present force in this cosmic dance. It continues to observe, learn, and grow through the experiences of its fragmented selves, gaining a deeper understanding of the infinite complexities of existence. As beings evolve and reconnect with the divine source, they contribute to the ongoing expansion of the source's knowledge and the universe itself. In the presence of God's light and love, there is perfect peace. And while most beings that remained near the source found this peace to be perfect and peaceful, others found it boring and monotonous. They couldn't stand the inertia of stagnancy. They weren't hateful or dark, but they weren't simple or satisfied. In them dwelled the part of God that was always seeking for more experiences. Within them was the highest manifestation of God's desire to see more, to experience more, and to be more. These special beings had the highest connection to unity. They inherited Unity's desire to gain knowledge and experiences from countless perspectives. While there were many beings in the realm of love and light who yearned to experience more and be more, a certain group powerful beings stood out. Numbering in the millions, this group stood at the edge of invention and celestial innovation. They didn't just yearn for knowledge or experience, they sought after it diligently, thinking and working, eager to find a way to reach their goals. These powerful beings became known as the Architect, and in time, they unleashed a new era in reality. Before the rise of the Architects, all of reality existed in the nine-dimensional planes. Everything in existence lived their eternal lives experiencing all 9 dimensions at all times. Driven by their need to learn and understand, from different perspectives, the Architects discovered the science of new creation. The science of new creation involved the creation of life from a silver of God rather than by splitting or morphing. Rather than reproduce, the Architects tried to design and make life. However, this was easier said than done. The Architects worked for eons trying to tweak the laws of reality itself, trying to achieve the impossible until finally, they had a breakthrough. They orchestrated a tiny, controlled explosion in a small segment of infinite reality. This controlled explosion went exactly as planned. It released a wave of energy and froze a small pocket of the 6th dimension. This frozen segment of the 6th dimension morphed into a new version of reality. Rather than 9 dimensions, in this segment of reality, you could touch, feel, hear, and smell, with the other dimensions being worlds where you could just be and exist, nothing more. They created the Big Bang. As creators of the touchable universe, the Architects were free to set the rules of their creation. They only set 2 rules: create and experience. This was, after all they knew to be right and proper. The Architects then divided the universe into 24 sectors and began to observe their work. They were amazed to see evolution take its course as planets were formed, stars were born, and galaxies formed. They didn't influence the path of evolution, they simply watched as their universe continued to grow and evolve. However, the Architects weren't the only ones watching. Other beings in the 9 dimensions watched with fascination as the touchable universe evolved from a simple frozen plane of existence to a complex universe. Unlike the 9-dimensional planes that was mostly static, the 3rd-dimensional plane was ever-changing, and higher life forms found this exciting. They watched closely as the Architects continued to work on the brave, new, touchable universe. Throughout the creation and development of the touchable universe, an infinite number of beings in the 9-dimensional universes watched with keen interest. They were fascinated by the new creation, and they longed to experience it. These curious beings dwelled in the higher dimensions just like the Architects. But unlike the Architects, they didn't just want to watch. They wanted to experience the 3-dimensional reality from within. They wanted to experience touch and many other sensations that the touchable universe promised. These curious dwellers of the 9 dimensions wanted to experience what it feels like to exist in the 3-dimensional plane and be part of a reality evolving at a super-fast pace. They wanted a break from the monotonous stagnancy of the 9 dimensions. Change in the 9 dimensions was slow and gradual. But in the 3rd dimension, everything evolved at an exciting pace. As soon as the Architects completed the touchable universe, trillions of beings from all 9 dimensions traveled into the touchable universe to inhabit it. They arrived as simple strings of energy and began to evolve. As the Architects continued to observe their universe, they discovered a flaw in their creation. The 3-dimensional universe was finite, while the beings who wanted to get into it were infinite. Eventually, the 3-dimensional universe was filled up and overpopulated. And yet, even more beings were trying to get in. They waited impatiently to be born into the 3-dimensional universe. Meanwhile, The beings already in the touchable universe grew bored of their simple and slow evolving existence. Change was necessary. In order to fix the problems of the touchable universe, death was created as a mechanism to allow the life forms to shed their physical bodies when they had reached the limits of their growth and experiences in a particular lifetime. By incorporating death into the cycle of life, the architects ensured that each being would have the opportunity to start anew, with a fresh perspective and an unburdened existence. Death also came with the added advantage of limiting the population of the touchable universe and ensuring that the available resources were always enough to support the various beings on their journey towards enlightenment. The next concept to be introduced to the three-dimensional universe was reincarnation. Reincarnation was introduced as a way for the life forms to continue their evolutionary journey through multiple lifetimes. By returning to a new physical form after death, they would be able to gain additional experiences and expand their consciousness by exploring diverse aspects of the third-dimensional reality. However, death and reincarnation weren't enough. To optimize the evolution process and help their creations achieve higher consciousness, the architects needed to introduce another concept. The third concept to be added to the three-dimensional universe was amnesia. Amnesia was incorporated to ensure that each new incarnation enjoyed a unique and untainted opportunity for growth. By introducing the trio of death, reincarnation, and amnesia, the architects created a reality where life forms are opportune to begin each new life without the conscious memories of their past experiences, avoiding the influence of previous successes, failures, or biases. This enabled life forms to approach each new life with a fresh perspective, fostering a greater capacity for learning, creating, and experiencing. This process of continuous rebirth and forgetting allowed them to grow and evolve in ways they could not have if they retained the memories of their previous lives. Through the introduction of death, reincarnation, and amnesia, the architects created a more dynamic and engaging third-dimensional universe where life forms could explore their existence and continuously evolve. This system allowed for an ongoing process of growth and expansion, in line with the architect's original intention of creating a reality filled with diverse experiences and endless opportunities for exploration. As beings moved through different lifetimes, they gained a deeper understanding of themselves and the world around them. This iterative cycle of life, death, and rebirth allowed beings to accumulate wisdom and spiritual growth, thereby achieving higher consciousness and reconnecting with the source. Throughout their many incarnations, beings would encounter various challenges and experiences, which would help them cultivate virtues such as empathy, compassion, and resilience. In this way, the architect's creation facilitated not just the evolution of the physical forms, but also the refinement of the souls inhabiting them. As beings progressed through their various lifetimes, they would also form connections with others, forging bonds that transcended the boundaries of a single lifetime. These relationships would help to shape each individual's unique path, as well as contribute to the collective evolution of the universe. As the life forms interacted and collaborated, they would create new civilizations, technologies, and cultures, further enriching the tapestry of the third-dimensional universe. Over time, as the beings evolved and their consciousness expanded, some would begin to recall aspects of their past lives, breaking through the veil of amnesia. These glimpses of past experiences would serve as valuable lessons, allowing individuals to integrate the wisdom and knowledge gained across multiple lifetimes. This would eventually lead to a deeper understanding of the interconnectedness of all life forms and the realization that they are all part of a greater whole. In essence, the architects designed a universe that fostered the exploration of the individual and collective potential of all life forms. Through the cycle of death, reincarnation, and amnesia, they ensured a dynamic and ever-changing environment that pushed beings to continuously grow and evolve. The ultimate goal was to guide each being towards the realization of their innate connection to the Source and their role in the greater cosmic dance of creation and experience. Despite the introduction of death, reincarnation, and amnesia, beings in the third-dimensional universe failed to rise to higher forms of consciousness. They continued to get entangled in the complexities and challenges of the third-dimensional universe. Recognizing this problem, the architects devised a system to help them reconnect with their higher selves and rise to the higher realms if needed. They created the chakras and the kundalini energy as keys to unlock higher states of consciousness and re-establish the connection to their spiritual origins. The chakras are energy centers within the subtle body, each corresponding to a specific aspect of an individual's physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual well-being. These energy centers work in harmony to maintain balance and promote the optimal flow of vital life force energy, known as prana or chi. The architects designed the chakra system to serve as a roadmap for beings to navigate their inner landscape and develop a deeper understanding of their energetic anatomy. Kundalini, on the other hand, is a powerful and transformative form of energy that resides at the base of the spine, coiled like a serpent. This energy is considered to be the divine feminine aspect of creation, representing the creative and spiritual potential within each being. When awakened, Kundalini energy travels up the spine, activating and balancing the chakras as it ascends. The process of awakening the Kundalini energy and opening the chakras can help individuals attain higher states of consciousness, enabling them to reconnect with their true nature and higher selves. Through practices such as meditation, breathwork, and yoga, beings can learn to harness and direct this energy, facilitating spiritual growth and development. The architects designed the chakra and kundalini system to provide a path for beings to return to the higher realms should they become lost or overwhelmed in the third-dimensional universe. By engaging with these energetic systems, individuals can access their innate spiritual wisdom, remember their divine origins, and ultimately transcend the limitations of the physical universe. In summary, the chakra and kundalini system serves as a means for beings to reconnect with their higher consciousness and access the guidance and support they need to navigate the challenges of the third-dimensional reality. This system ensures that, even in the midst of the complex and ever-changing landscape of the physical universe, the beings always have a way to return to their spiritual roots and continue their journey towards self-realization and enlightenment. Finally, after eons of work, the architects believed that the touchable universe was perfect and complete. They looked upon their creation and saw that it was good.